Beginner's yoga. We'll go for about an hour today, and we're going to focus on a muscle that's called the psoas. The psoas, more or less, connects to your lower back, runs under your guts, over your hip, and attaches to your leg bone. If you were, as we go through the practice, if you focus on the spot, so if you have your zipper here, and you have your hip bone here, the psoas kind of runs right in between the two. So right in between your zipper and your hip bone, when we're going through some of these stretches, and when we're going through the yoga poses, we try to focus right in that area. That's a pretty easy place to feel the psoas. If you have a yoga block, keep it with you. If you don't have a yoga block, it's okay. You may not need it, but also we can use the yoga mat. Now, first things first, let's get warmed up with our breathing, and then we'll do our best to get in touch with the psoas. We'll stretch the psoas a little bit, stand up, and just keep working on freeing up that psoas and see if it helps with improving our breathing, see if it helps improve your posture, see if it helps reduce any sort of back pain. There's a lot of stuff affiliated with the psoas, tight psoas in particular. So first things first, let's lie flat on our backs. Knees bent, feet flat on the ground. Tuck your pelvis under. You might take your hands and physically tilt your pelvis or tuck it under. And just breathe here for just about a minute. Now with our knees bent, you're not going to feel any sensations through the psoas at all. The psoas is a hip, I beg your pardon, the psoas is the hip flexor. So as you bring your knees closer and closer to your chest, you're taking stress out of the psoas. So you're not really going to feel it as much. When we lengthen, when we extend our hips, that's when we should feel it kick in a little. So right here, right now, knees bent, feet flat, posterior pelvic tilt, flat on the ground. Let's begin breathing in and out through your nose. As we get into these stretches, and of course as we get into the yoga, you want to do your best to maintain that nasal breathing in and out through the nose. Now if you like, you can place one hand on your chest and one hand just under your belly button. And when you breathe, you want to feel the hand on your tummy. You want to feel your hand lift and lower. The hand on your chest, for right now, should stay still. Or at the very least, your tummy should move first, then your hand. Then finally you try to breathe rhythmically, smoothly and evenly. No sighing, coughing, sputtering. It should just be very, very smooth, even and rhythmic. If all else fails, just breathe in and out through your nose. Now we're going to try one leg at a time to see if we can start to feel the psoas. In this case, let's grab onto our left knee. We'll pull the left knee up to the chest, 2 hands on your left knee. Let your right leg go straight. Put a little bit of tension in your leg, so you want your leg toned. Now, if you feel a stretch right between your zipper and your hip bone, if you feel a stretch, there's a good chance you're getting into your psoas. Could be. One way to sort of increase that stretch is pull your knee a little bit closer to your chest, whatever you can tolerate. And at the same time, you have to tuck your pelvis under. So you're tucking your pelvis, and you're keeping your right knee as close to the ground as possible. If you're bending your knee or lifting your leg, you're taking the tension off of the psoas. We want to try to keep the knee, the thigh, the calf, the foot down and tilt the pelvis. Almost what we experience in mountain pose. If we do mountain pose correctly, you should feel a stretch in the front part of your hip. So keep breathing, keep working all those actions. If you're not quite feeling a stretch, don't worry. You are still benefiting from doing the breathing and the stretching. Keep tucking your pelvis. Your back is trying to be as flat on the ground as possible, and you're trying to get your leg on the ground while tucking your pelvis under. You are extending your hips, and that hip extension is what's going to put tension on your psoas. Now we'll switch both knees to the chest. Hold on to your right knee. Left foot touches the ground. Left leg touches the ground. Before you do anything, just see what there is to feel. If you're feeling tension between your zipper and your hip bone on the left leg, there's a good chance you're already stretching your psoas. If you don't quite feel it, start tucking your pelvis under, posterior pelvic tilt. But you're also trying to keep your left leg flat on the ground. So your left leg flat on the ground, as much as your spine flat on the ground as possible, and hopefully you begin to feel the front of your left hip. It feels a stretch or it feels some moderate tension. Breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Keep tucking your pelvis. Keep nasal breathing. Both knees to your chest. Good. We just give it a little break. Now we'll try to stretch both sides simultaneously. Let one foot touch the ground. Let the other foot touch the ground. Let one leg go straight. Let the other leg go straight. Now, same thing. Tone both legs. You're trying to keep both legs flat on the ground. And while you do that, initiate a posterior pelvic tilt. If you're observing what I'm doing, you see I take my hands, grab onto the pelvis itself, the bony structures of the pelvis, and I try to tuck it under. Because I'm trying to feel for a stretch right in the front of the hips. And breathe. Now if you don't feel much of a stretch here, hang on, because we'll go a little bit deeper. If you do feel a stretch, stay here and breathe. One more inhale. Exhale and just release. Relax. So hopefully when you relax, you feel your lumbar curve comes back and maybe you feel a little bit of blood flow through the hips and legs. Now, if those stretches were enough for you, If you got the signal loud and clear, just repeat those stretches. If it was a little murky, maybe your hips aren't as tight, grab a yoga block, set it to low, and gently place that yoga block right on your sacrum. If you don't have a yoga block, you can roll up your yoga mat. Take your yoga mat, roll it up. You just try to get your hips a little bit up off the ground, and that will help give you a deeper feeling of the psoas stretch. From this position, same thing. We'll keep, let's bring the left knee up to the chest. Hips are secure on the yoga block. And now, slowly start to straighten your right leg toward the ground. Here you should definitely start to feel a stretch right in front of your hips. You have to do a posterior pelvic tilt. So really keeping this knee towards your chest facilitates the posterior pelvic tilt. Using your abs and squeezing your glutes a little bit. And you'll start to feel a stretch, hopefully start to feel a stretch right in front of your hip. In this case, it's the right hip. But use your muscles because that's going to keep you safe. Keep using your muscles. If it's too intense, just slip the yoga block away, no problem, lie flat on your back. Or maybe just having your yoga mat rolled up a little bit, just get half of the lift off that you would with the yoga block. Both knees to your chest. Hold on to your right knee. Left foot touches the ground. Go easy here. Straighten the left leg. Bring your right knee towards your chest. And just notice if you feel a stretch on the front of your left hip. Breathe. Use your muscles. You squeeze your glutes a little bit, squeeze your leg muscles a little bit. Steady, steady, steady breathing. Hang in there with me. 3, 2, 1. Both knees to your chest. Let both feet touch the ground. Push the ground a little bit, and we'll move the yoga block to the side. I'm just moving the yoga block arbitrarily over to the side. You can place it wherever you like. Let's roll over to one side. Let's come up to a standing position, just nice and easy. Now, what we want to do as we're going through our practice, we want to keep our focus right in that front part of our hips. So as we're getting ready to do mountain pose, breathing mountain pose, bring your attention here. The same sensations we had when we were on the ground. Let's try mountain pose. Bring your feet about hip width apart, please. Spread your toes out wide. And make your toes as long as possible. Don't scrunch up your toes. Tone your legs. Just like we did on the ground, try to tuck your pelvis under. You should feel something right in the front of your hips. Squeeze your legs, tuck your pelvis. Make your arms straight. Pull your shoulders down. Squeeze your shoulder blades towards your spine. And breathe. And just feel what there is to feel. Maybe it's easier to tuck your pelvis. That's the posterior pelvic tilt. Maybe you can feel more of a low back stretch. Maybe it's easier to breathe. Maybe it feels exactly the same as it always feels, all of which are okay. One more inhale. Exhale. Breathing mountain pose. Inhale, bring your arms up. Exhale, pronate your hands. Bring your arms back to the starting position. Inhale, halfway up. I should say half circle. Exhale, complete the circle. And repeat. Pronate the hands. Complete the circle. Find your rhythm. So you might be breathing in at 4 seconds. Breathing out in 4 seconds. That's okay. Try to move your arms in the same cadence. You're trying to set your breath, and then your arms will follow. And that'll go with the rest of the practice as well. Like a surfer jumping on a wave. Bring your hands by your side. Mountain pose, please. Really lock in to that posterior pelvic tilt. Really try to feel the psoas running up and down the front of your hip. Inhale. Exhale with a sigh. Release. Good. Let's try a little something for the overhead position, because today we're going to focus on pyramid prep, front warrior, and warrior one. All three of these, if possible, requires our arms up overhead this way. But a lot of folks have trouble with that because of tight shoulders, which is really probably a tight rib cage, and the inability to extend their arms. So let's try a couple things, see if we can make this position accessible today. The first thing's just warm up the elbows a little bit. It's going to look a little silly, but you flex and extend your elbow. Flexion, extension. Breathe here. And it doesn't matter how fast you go or how slow you go. What matters is when you extend your arms, when you extend your elbows, you want to feel a little bit of compression in your elbow joint. And you want to feel this muscle, the triceps, you want to feel that muscle get tight. That's what we're shooting for. I'm not sure why, but a lot of people don't extend their arms fully. I'm not sure why. Want to encourage you to extend your arms fully. If your arms hyperextend, you may or may need to pull back just a little bit so you don't hyperextend your joint. But if you do hyperextend your joint and it doesn't hurt, it doesn't cause an issue, you should be fine. Run that stuff by your doctor to be 100% sure. But if you have that range of motion, if you have the ability to extend your arm fully, please do yourself a favor, do your shoulders a favor, do the world a favor, and extend your arms fully. Okay. Now, next thing is called protraction and retraction of the shoulder blades. If you leave your arms by your side and you squeeze your chest muscles, your shoulder blades will protract. Your shoulder blades move away from your spine. Now, squeeze your shoulder blades together. Retraction. You use your back muscles and it pulls the shoulder blades together. Protraction, retraction. protraction, retraction. Just do this a couple times. You want to get the feel of your back muscles working, chest muscles working, back muscles working, chest muscles working. Try to say that 3 times fast. Chest muscles working. Okay, we're almost there. Now we internally and externally rotate the humerus. The humerus is the straight, long bone of your arm. It attaches to your shoulder. It's a ball and socket joint between the shoulder and the humerus. One of the most mobile joints in the body. And what we're going to try to do is put all 3 of these warm-ups together into one overhead position. Okay? So make sure your arm is rolling around from the shoulder. It's not just your wrist turning. It's not just your forearm turning. It's your arm bone turning. Good. Now, here's what we're going to try to do. Make your arms straight. Remember, you want to feel your elbow compress a little bit. You want to feel the biceps, I beg your pardon. You want to feel the triceps tone, the biceps stretch. Keeping your arms straight. Bring your arms up overhead. Now, wherever you feel stuck, doesn't even matter if you're here. Doesn't matter if your arms are way overhead. At some point you're going to feel stuck. When you feel stuck, do scapular protraction, scapular retraction, and then see if you can raise your arms higher. Protraction, retraction, raise your arms higher. Protraction, retraction, raise your arms higher. And just keep repeating that a few times and see if your range of motion improves. Chest muscles, back muscles, raise your arms higher. Chest muscles, back muscles, raise your arms higher. But just see if you get a little more range of motion. Good. Once you're stuck, you just can't move that centimeter anymore, take an inhale, exhale with a sigh, and release. If you can tolerate having your arms overhead, we're going to have our arms overhead. You can use that little trick to help improve your range of motion. If you're not responding well to that, it's okay. Keep your arms by your side. Okay? Let's come to the short end of the mat, please. First is pyramid preparation. All 3 of these poses, pyramid prep, front warrior, warrior 1, are all to help open up and stretch the psoas. In this case, feet are about hip width apart. Stare at your left foot, please. Bend your left leg. You're going to need that for balance. Drag your right foot straight back to about a medium stance. Keep that front leg bent a little bit. From this position, if you can, look down. Double check. Make sure your feet are pointing forward, legs point forward. When your feet are set your front leg. And now tuck your pelvis. Hopefully, on the front side of your right leg, you feel that psoas stretch. If you don't worry. Just keep tucking your pelvis. Now, if you like, arms by your side or arms up overhead for pyramid preparation pose. You can try the protraction, retraction trick to see if you get your arms up a little higher. If it's overwhelming, just keep your arms by your side. Keep tucking your pelvis, please. 3, 2, 1. Swing your arms back, step forward. Good. Let's try the other side. Stare at your right foot. Bend your right knee a little. That's for your balance. Drag your left foot straight back to medium stance. Keep your right leg bent. Double check that everything is pointing to the small end of your mat. When your feet are set, straighten your legs, tuck your pelvis. Arms by your side or arms overhead. Hold and breathe. Hold here and breathe here. Keep tucking your pelvis. Look for that psoas stretch on the rear leg. 3, 2, 1. Swing your arms back, step forward. Good. Now we'll go a little deeper. This is called the front warrior. Front warrior, we're going to bend the rear leg a lot more. I beg your pardon. We're going to bend the front leg a lot more, and we're going to straighten the rear leg a lot more. Okay? Feet about hip width apart. Bend your left leg a little for balance. Now we drag the right toes straight back to a high runner's lunge, more or less. That front leg is trying to be as bent as possible. Rear leg is trying to be as straight as possible. You're on the toes of your rear leg. Make your rear leg as straight as possible. You're going to feel a tug on the psoas. Tuck your pelvis under, just like we've been doing for every psoas stretch so far. You want to feel that tension on the front of your hip. Arms by your side or arms up overhead. Breathe. Keep working the stretch on the front of your hip. Three, 2, 1. Swing your arms back a little bit, step forward. Good. Let's try the other side, please. Stare at your right leg. Bend your right knee a little bit for balance. Drag your left toes straight back. High runner's lunge, more or less. Front knee as bent as possible. Rear knee as straight as possible. Hips as square as possible. Keep tucking your pelvis under. Look for that intensity on the front of your hip for that rear leg. Arms by your side or arms up overhead. Breathe. Keep working. Keep straightening. Keep tucking. There's a lot of work going on here. Just being alive makes your psoas tight. You're in good company here. 3, 2, 1. Swing your arms back, step forward. Good. We're almost there. Now we're going to try for Warrior 1. Warrior 1 can be a little tricky because our hips are going to stay fixed one way and our ribs are going to turn another way. So we get this sort of ringing, stretchy feeling diagonally across the front of our body. Okay? So let's look at the left foot. Bend your left knee a little bit. Drag your right toes straight back. We've been here before. It's more or less a front warrior, more or less. Now here's the difference. The heel of that front leg is going to drop down and back. And when you do that, hopefully everything turned. Your leg turned, your hips turned. When your hips turned, they should be at about a 45-degree angle. They're not quite facing the long end of your mat. They're not quite facing the short end of your mat. They're right in between. That 45-degree angle. Now, keeping your hips fixed. Bring your arms up overhead. Keeping your hips fixed, turn your ribs toward the short end of your mat. Breathe. Now your right leg is in the back. You should feel a stretch from your left armpit diagonally down over your right hip, down your right leg. Somewhere on that diagonal line, you should be feeling a stretch. Hang in there and breathe. 3, 2, 1. Straighten your front leg. Drop your arms. Any way you can get to the front of the mat, do so safely. You can kind of wobble your way. You might be able to take a big giant step. However you can get here safely. Warrior 1, opposite side. Stare at your right foot. Bend your right knee. Drag your left leg straight back. You're on your left toes. We're in that high runner's lunge. Inhale. Exhale, drop your rear heel. Your hips turn about 45 degrees. Double check. When you feel ready, arms up overhead. Keep your hips fixed and turn your ribs to the short end of your mat. Breathe. Steady, steady, steady breathing. If your left leg is the rear leg, you should feel a stretch from your right armpit diagonally down to the front of your left leg. Keep tucking your pelvis. Keep breathing here. 3, 2, 1. Swing your arms back a little bit, step forward. Nice. While we're here, let's try mountain pose. Feet about hip width apart, correct your toes. Tone your legs. Arms, shoulders, shoulder blades. Find that posterior pelvic tilt. Inhale. Exhale with a sigh. And release. Good. Let's come to the center of the mat, please. Let's take our feet wide. Notice if it feels easier to take your feet wider. Notice how your hips feel in general. Keep your legs straight. Feet pointing forward. In a way, it's kind of like a wide-legged mountain pose. Legs toned, arms by your side. Inhale. Exhale. Bring your hands to the front of your thighs. Bend your knees slightly. You need a little bit of buoyancy in your knees. Lift your tailbone. Lift your chest bone. You want to tone every muscle fiber up and down your spine. Keeping your spine extended, exhale, push your hips straight back. And we get a rearward shift here. Hold and breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Notice anything. Maybe you got a little deeper into this pose. Maybe it's a little easier. Maybe you have to work different parts of your body a little harder because your hips are a little fatigued. Find an exhale. Stand straight up. Kind of like a wide-legged mountain pose. Relax a little. Now we do the downhill skier variation. You can repeat what we just did, or bring your shoulder blades up. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Pull your shoulder blades down. Make your arms straight, please. Your hands will probably not touch your legs, and that's all right. Inhale. Exhale. Bend your knees slightly. Keep working shoulders down, shoulder blades to the spine. Lift your tailbone. Keep working shoulder blades down, shoulder blades toward the spine. Exhale. Hinge at your hips. You should look like you're downhill skiing. Or maybe riding a horse real fast. I'm not sure. One or the other. Keep your knees slightly bent. See how much higher you can raise your wrists and your arms. Look for things to contract and tone versus looking for shortcuts to make the pose easier. The pose should be challenging. Challenge yourself a little. One more inhale. Exhale, stand up directly to wide-legged mountain pose. Inhale. Exhale with a sigh. And now, if you like, toe heel your feet about hip width apart. Little extra joint mobility in there, little extra hip work. Awesome. Let's do the flamingo pose for a balanced pose, and then we'll do something else as well. Flamingo pose. Just get your feet real close together. Spread your toes out wide. If you're facing me, shift all the weight into your right leg. Make sure your arms are loose. When you feel that weight shift, bend your left knee and then try to hide your left foot from me. And breathe. Now do your best to keep your knees and your thighs next to each other. They don't have to be glued together tight, but the bent leg has a tendency to drift forward. So you have to use a little bit of hip extension to keep your thigh and your knee even. Fingers loose, steady breathing, both feet down. Good. Let's try the other side. Shift all the way into your opposite leg. Make sure you keep your arms loose, face relaxed, deep breathing. Bend your right knee. And bend it enough that if I were standing in front of you, I wouldn't see your right shin or your right knee. I really should have said your shin or your right foot. Keep your thighs and your knees next to each other. You don't have to glue them together, but the knee that's bent has a tendency, it'll lift up and away from the torso. Keep it directly under your hips. Steady breathing. One more inhale. Exhale, both feet down. Good. Next up, we shall try squatting without squatting. Bring your feet together, please. Arms loose. Shift all the weight into your right leg. When you feel ready, bend your left knee as much as you can and raise your left knee as much as you can. There are two actions here. Bending the knee and raising the knee. Keep getting your knee higher and higher, and keep getting that foot closer and closer to your buttocks. It's called knee flexion and hip flexion. All the psoas stuff stretched out your hip flexors, so you might be able to get your knee a little higher than usual if you do this pose regularly. Both feet down, both hands down. Good. We'll switch to the other side. All the way into your left leg. Bend your right knee a lot. And then lift your right knee a lot. A lot. So what does a lot mean? A lot means as much as you can muster without hurting yourself. It's as far as you dare go. But there's a caveat there. You can probably go a little more than you think. Most people go to where they are totally 100% completely comfortable, and then they stop, they stall, growth ends. If you go to where you're totally 100% comfortable, and then try for a centimeter more, now we're talking. Both feet down, both hands down. Let's come to mountain pose, please. Double check and correct your feet, legs. Tuck your pelvis, shoulders down, arms straight. Come back to your breathing. Notice how this mountain pose feels compared to the very first mountain pose. How does the breathing feel? One more inhale. Exhale with a sigh. Good. And let's come down to a seated position. Any way you like, any way you can. Now, since I have a yoga block, I'm going to use it. I usually set it to medium, and I guess widthwise in relation to the mat. So medium and widthwise makes this position a little more accessible to me. If this is impossible, you may want to sit on the brick with your legs crossed. You may just want to sit in a chair. Anything at all where you can sit up tall is the key, right? So you don't want to be slouched over and hunched. You want to try to lift that chest. Lift your collarbones, lift your chest bones. With your hands on your knees, or with one hand on your tummy, you choose. Let's come back to the breathing. Technically, the breathing should have never left us, but just a little bit of pranayama insurance. Back to the nasal breathing. If you can, you're breathing down deep into your hand. The chest stays still, or at least let it be secondary. Primary is the tummy. Secondary might be your chest. And tertiary might be a little bit higher up into the collarbones. Now from here, holding on to that rhythmic breathing, that slow, deep breathing, we'll try a spinal twist. Remember, when we go into a spinal twist, it puts stress on the breathing mechanism, which is to be expected. This is where the breath control comes in. It requires a little bit of coordination, a little bit of work with your muscles. You still try to maintain 4 or 5 seconds in, 4 or 5 seconds out, even though your breathing mechanism is somewhat restricted. Okay? Inhale. Lift your chest so you extend your spine. Exhale. Turn your ribs to your right. When you feel stuck, stop. You can place your hand on your knees. Your hands can be on the ground. Every time you inhale, try to lift your spine. I should say, I beg your pardon, lift your chest. And every time you exhale, you try to turn, even if it's 1,000th of a millimeter. And you're still trying to find that cadence, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. On every breath. Not just one or two. Every single breath you try. Lift your chest. Exhale, turn. And you'll get stuck. There's a point where you will stop moving. But you still put that effort in. Gentle effort. And you start to breathe against that resistance. And that's what's going to help free up your rib cage, tone your diaphragm, and just make your breathing mechanism stronger and stronger. Gently look forward. Gently unwind. Hands to your knees. And breathe. It's funny, almost reflexively, I took in that big inhale. Big exhale. Just see what there is to see. Feel what there is to feel. And just witness if it's easier to breathe, easier to sit up tall, if your mood is changing a little, if you're feeling calmer. If it makes sense, and if you're able to, switch your crisscross applesauce, and we'll go to the other side. Inhale, lift your chest. Exhale, turn your ribs to your left. Each inhale, try to extend. Each exhale, try to turn. You will get stuck. And that's totally okay. The goal is to try to breathe, calm down, breathe into that stuckness. And you gently create adaptations. Gently unwind, gently unwind. And again, just notice what you feel, how you feel. One more inhale. One more exhale. Nice. And let's sit lengthwise on the mat. If you have your yoga block, keep it close by just in case. I like to bring my feet to the short end of the mat. You can do it too if you like. Sit up tall. Use your hands. Grab onto your leg muscles and just wobble your leg muscles side to side. Just relieving any excess tension you might feel in your feet, legs, hips. Maybe a gentle twist, just a little easy twist to relieve anything in your low back, but just go easy, nothing too dramatic. And then we lie flat on our backs. Lie back any way you can. Just make sure it's safe, comfortable for you. And once you're flat on your back, bring your knees to your chest, please. And just double check your hips square, spine straight, shoulders square. And one at a time, we let one foot touch the ground, let the other foot touch the ground. If you have your yoga block, place it between your knees. Just set it to shallow. Place it between your knees. Make sure your feet are about the same width apart as your yoga block and your knees. Try to get your heels as close to your glutes as possible, whatever your knees can tolerate. And we're going to try a bridge here. Hands by your side, palms face down. Inhale. Exhale. Pull your Kegel contractions in. Pull your Kegel muscles up into your body. Tuck your pelvis. And in one piece, push through your feet to get your hips up. This is hip extension. So we're using our glutes to squeeze toward each other. And use your glutes to squeeze into the bony structure of your pelvis. And notice, hopefully you'll notice, we're stretching the psoas again. We're stretching those hip flexors. Keep squeezing the glutes hard. If you have a yoga block between your knees, try not to death grip the yoga block. Should barely be squeezing it. If you let go of the yoga block too much, it'll drop. If you squeeze the yoga block too much, you won't get as much glute or psoas work. Steady breathing, keep working. Keep pressing your hips toward the ceiling. One more inhale. One more exhale, lower down in one piece. Grab onto your yoga block if it applies. One leg goes straight, the other leg goes straight. And again, notice what there is to notice. If you have the yoga block, go ahead and place it on your tummy. Arms by your side, palms face down. Close your eyes. Find an inhale. Exhale with a sigh. If you have a yoga block on your tummy, just focus on your yoga block rising and falling with your inhales and exhales. Inhale. The yoga block rises. Exhale. The yoga block lowers. Let's be quiet for about 1 minute, please. Keep your eyes closed as we start to come back. Wiggle your toes. Wiggle your fingers. Breathe normally. In and out through your nose, in and out through your tummy. Gently put the yoga block to the side and bring your knees to your chest. Nice and easy. And put a big old smile on your face. You earned it. And by smiling, you're turning up the volume on the benefits of your yoga practice. Meditation tuned up to 10. Muscle toning, 10. Flexibility, 10. Bone strengthening, 10. Better lung function times 10. Just by smiling. Now let's roll over to our sides, still smiling, still breathing. If you got your yoga block, you can use it as a little pillow. Keep breathing and keep smiling. Just let those benefits sink in into your bloodstream, connective tissue, muscles, bone marrow, all of your organs, all of your guts, your brain and your heart. If you have all the time in the world, stay here. Stay here and breathe here, smile here, as long as you can. In the interest of time, I'm going to come to a seated position. You can too, if you like. Maybe set your yoga block to low and lengthwise. Compared to the yoga mat, be lengthwise. Getting that yoga block under your hips helps get your hips higher than your knees. That helps facilitate the ability to sit up tall. Sitting up tall helps facilitate deep breathing. Bring your hands together in prayer. Bring your thumbnails to your chest bone, please. With your eyes open or closed, let's take a deep inhale together. Let's exhale together. Namaste.